Edward brought his adopted little sister home for the first night. The girl cautiously pushed open our bedroom door. Her white nightgown barely clung to her body. "Brother, I'm scared to be alone." Edward got up helplessly and gently told me to go to sleep first. I sat alone in the darkness for a long time, then called over more than a dozen male models to throw a party at home. Chapter 1. Edward was forced out of his room by the music and laughter. Get out, just two calm words, but it sent a chill down everyone's spine. The handsome guys fled in panic, leaving only the two of us in the living room. "What do you mean by this?" Edward frowned at me. Behind him, Oriana was still wearing that ridiculously short, white lace nightgown, her long hair draping over her shoulders, looking pitiful and innocent. I lounged comfortably on the sofa, legs crossed, holding a glass of wine. "Didn't your sister say she was scared to sleep alone? I just invited more people to keep her company." Oriana's face turned pale. "What do you take me for?" I smiled, brightly enunciating each word. A shameless girl trying to seduce her own brother. Edward's expression turned ice cold. "Maria." Oriana's eyes turned red, her voice trembling with fury. "What right do you have to judge me? Everyone knows you used to be a party girl, a tramp. If it weren't for the engagement arranged by your families, my brother would never marry someone like you." "Ori, shut up." Oriana froze, tears of grievance falling down. You're yelling at me for her. Didn't you hear how she insulted me?" "Fine, I'll go, I'll just leave." She stormed toward the door in rage, her pitifully short nightgown nearly falling off her body. Edward frowned and scooped her up by the waist, carrying her back to her room, before returning to me. "Go to sleep." I didn't move, sneering at him. Edward sighed. "I'm really tired. Can we not do this right now? Did you hear what your sister just said? Ori is still young. She says things without thinking. I'll apologize on her behalf." I curled my lips. She wasn't wrong. Yes, our families are well matched, and this is a business marriage. The engagement was settled long ago. But Maria, was a party girl. I've never lacked men around me, especially good-looking ones. Edward's eyes turned colder with every word. He pinned me down on the sofa and kissed me with punishment in his breath. His voice was hoarse. "Maria, do you need me to remind you that you're my wife now?" I laughed, but my eyes turned red and my voice trembled. "But don't forget who was the one that dragged me out of the bars again and again, who shamelessly claimed to be my fiancé, who begged and pestered me until I said yes." Edward pulled me into his arms. "It was me. I couldn't live without you." I pushed him away coldly and slammed the door behind me. "Edward, it's either me or her. Make her leave first thing tomorrow." The next morning, Oriana came down wearing Edward's shirt, cheerfully greeting me at the dining table. "Hi, good morning, sister-in-law." My smile froze, like sinking to the bottom of a lake. Chapter 2. After 3 years of marriage, Edward, who had never once stepped into a kitchen, was now wearing an apron cooking soup. "Sis-in-law, come try my brother's crucian carp and tofu soup is so good. Every time I'm upset, just a sip of his soup makes me feel instantly better." The same girl who yesterday called me a slut was now all smiles, proudly showing off just how attentive Edward was to her. And Edward, like nothing had happened, casually said, "You're up, come sit." Did he think I was joking last night, or had he already made his choice? I took a deep breath, forcing down the fury and ache that churned in my chest. I immediately called my new assistant. "Get me breakfast on my desk at 9 sharp. Then I turned and walked out without hesitation. Behind me came Oriana's whiny complaint. I even tried making peace with her. What more does she want? Whatever, the food was meant for me anyway. On the way to the office, I called my brother. "I want a divorce. Is this some kind of joke?" I clenched my purse tightly. "I'm not joking." My brother sounded stunned. "Edward," he agreed, "he went through hell and high water to marry you." I cut him off impatiently. "His opinion doesn't matter. I want the divorce." "All right. 1 month. I'll take care of everything." I tossed the phone aside and looked out at the sunlight flickering through the trees outside the car window. On this humiliating morning, I made up my mind. "Edward, I'm letting go. You and your darling sister, enjoy your life." After the morning meeting, Edward's assistant's son showed up with a massive bouquet of yellow roses, my favorite. I glanced at them and handed them straight to the new assistant. "Here, they're yours." Just then Edward happened to walk in and saw the whole thing. Calm as ever, I took out a card and tucked it into the assistant's shirt pocket. "Breakfast hit the spot. You've earned it." The assistant smiled and accepted it without hesitation. "Thank you, boss." Edward silently watched him leave, then cornered me against the desk. You knew exactly how to piss me off. So this is revenge at chapter 3, I sneered. If I really wanted revenge, I wouldn't have given him a card. I'd have handed him the keys to my private villa. Edward looked exasperated. I cleared my entire schedule today, just to come see you. Are you still mad? He pulled me into his arms. Maria, what exactly are you angry about? I nearly burst out laughing. What a joke. I'd been fuming all night, and he didn't even know why I handed him my phone. It was a friend request from Oriana. Her profile picture was clearly taken and updated just this morning. In the photo, she was still wearing Edward's shirt from earlier, posing playfully with her cheeks cupped in the middle of a sea of yellow roses. Breakfast, you made it for her, not for me. We've been married 3 years, and you've never cooked for me once. And the flowers, you gave me one bouquet, and she clung to you until she got a whole field. Am I wrong? Edward was silent for a moment, then said, If it's because of that, I'll cook just for you tonight. I'll send you. I cut him off, furious. Enough, Edward. Don't you get it? Oriana has crossed the line in you. You let her. You've been enabling her to trample all over the boundaries between us. Edward looked genuinely baffled. Maria, what are you saying? Ori is just my sister. I gave a cold laugh. And I'm my brother's sister. But I don't walk around in micro nightgowns in his and his wife's house. I don't need my brother to tuck me in at night, even though I'm in my 20s. And I definitely wouldn't leave bite marks on his collarbone. Edward stiffened instinctively, reaching up to touch his collarbone. You thought I didn't see it last night? He chuckled in disbelief, trying to explain. She's always been like that, like a puppy. Loves to bite. I waved him off. Spare me. I don't want to hear about your past with her. Don't forget, she's not your real sister. Edward was quiet for a long moment. She's not, no. But please don't think of us in such a filthy way. I let out a bitter laugh, shoving him away. Get out. Now. But Edward smiled. He leaned in, close eyes filled with amusement. Maria, after all these years, it's rare to see you jealous because of me. I'll remind her to behave appropriately. Please don't stay mad, all right? He always knew how to calm me down when I was about to explode. And just as I was about to say something, Edward's phone rang. It was Oriana. Chapter 4. Edward answered the call, mumbling a few vague responses. After hanging up, he held my hand. I'll talk to our parents and have her move back home. His warm lips brushed against the shell of my ear. Come home early tonight. What do you want to eat this time? I'll make it just for you. Suddenly I remembered the past. His face twisted in anger as he dragged me out of a bar. He held back his emotions, swallowing every bitter word. Eyes red, looking helpless and humbled. Maria, what do you want me to do? My throat tightened. All right, Edward. I'll trust you one more time. But if you lie to me, I dug my nails harshly into the palm of his hand. Then I will never forgive you. Not for the rest of my life. Edward smiled and gently kissed my tear-reddened eyes. Maria, I've never lied to you. Not once in my life. When I got home that night, Edward hadn't returned yet. Oriana was sitting on the couch, cold and stiff like a vengeful ghost. Why didn't you accept my friend request on WeChat? I glanced at her flatly. Why would I need to? What did you say to my brother? She blocked my way. Why does he want me to move out? I didn't even want to answer. Then she suddenly snapped like a lunatic, grabbed a vase and hurled it at me. The thick glass struck my forehead, making my ears ring from the pain. The rose thorns scraped long, bloody marks down my cheek and arm. At that exact moment, the front door swung open. Oriana snatched up a shard of glass and pressed it to her wrist, her voice hoarse with grief and rage, as she screamed at me, sobbing, I only wanted to apologize to you. Why are you doing this to me? Is it only if I die that you'll be satisfied? Edward's eyes darkened instantly, his face drained of color. He rushed over in panic. Ori, brother. Oriana shook her head in agony. I know. I've always been the unwanted one in this family. I won't get in the way of your happiness anymore. Never again. Blood spurted out. Edward looked ghostly pale. He had never looked so terrified. Don't talk nonsense. I'll take you to the hospital. He scooped her up in his arms without even glancing at me. I panicked. Edward, her wrist. That has nothing to do with me, but he didn't even look back. I slid down against the wall, collapsing to the floor. It felt like someone had taken a blade to my heart. Chapter 5. Late at night, Edward came home exhausted. He casually held his suit jacket, leaning against the doorframe, frowning as he watched me pack my suitcase. You're leaving? What else would I be doing? My sharp tone made Edward's voice drop low. Why are you making a scene again? No one's blaming you for anything. What an interesting thing to say. Oh, so this is your version of being tolerant and generous with me. I dropped the suitcase and looked at him coldly. Edward, and who gave you the right to blame me? Edward tried to keep his temper in check, attempting to reason with me. I told you I'd have her move back home. Why did you still provoke her? What did I even do? I just didn't accept her friend request. I don't get to control whether you want to sleep with her, but I sure as hell have the right to manage my own contacts list. Edward's face darkened. For once his voice carried a trace of real anger. Maria, could you stop being so harsh with your words? I've told you. She's just my sister, yes. She's clingy, I get it. But that's because during puberty, she found out she was adopted. Since then she's been fragile, tried to commit suicide several times, and was even diagnosed with depression. I was the one who cared for her, who sent her abroad to study while getting therapy. She can't handle emotional stress. I'm begging you. Please, even just a little, try to understand her. Be kind to her. I looked at this man, this always calm and rational man, completely unraveling before my eyes. And I felt nothing but cold. In 3 years of marriage, he had never raised his voice at me like this. Even during the worst times, when I deliberately provoked him, tried to make him jealous, he had never once said anything to hurt me. My throat closed up, and I couldn't say a single word. Not until I bit through my lip, the taste of blood spreading in my mouth. I tried to stop my hands from trembling. Yes, I'm harsh. I'm vicious. Edward, then go spend the rest of your life with your pure, innocent, delicate little sister. Edward took a long breath, like he was barely holding himself together. His voice dropped to ice. You don't need to pack. I'll take her and go. When you're ready to talk calmly, we'll talk. I locked myself in the bedroom. I heard the sounds of luggage being moved, and finally the cold slam of the front door. Turns out when your heart is shattered beyond repair, you can't even cry. Edward and I were separated. I didn't know where he went, and I didn't care. His cousin, however, once sent me screenshots of Oriana's WeChat moments. What kind of 24-year-old still gets told by her big brother not to go to bars? LOL, I'm going anyway. Along with a chat log between her and Edward. Today's edition of House Husband Brother. Just another day of being fed by my amazing brother, a selfie showing Edward doting on her, spoon-feeding her. Tried it for you girls. Men's shirts really are super comfy. She lounged on the couch in a selfie, deliberately capturing Edward working in the background. Looking at these, I merely smiled faintly. It was strange. In the past, knowing myself, I would have stormed over and slapped both Edward and Oriana across the face. But now my heart was calm. I just found it ridiculous. When I received a WeChat update from my brother on the divorce proceedings, my assistant just happened to bring me a cup of coffee. I had to admit, Alex was an exceptional assistant. He'd only been on the job for 2 weeks, but already understood everything I liked and disliked. He even seemed to know what I wanted to do before I did. Sitting at the edge of my desk, he smiled beautifully and suggested good news like this calls for a drink. I raised an eyebrow and tugged on his tie. Alex's gaze darkened slightly. But I don't feel like drinking tonight. I took him to my private villa. Chapter 6. I never expected that after our Cold War separation, the next time I'd see Edward would be in a bar. Oriana was being harassed by a group of men, and the mighty CEO himself got into a full-on fistfight in the middle of the club. I watched the scene unfold with great interest until our eyes met across the crowd. Someone quickly stepped in to handle the aftermath for Edward. He tossed away the silk handkerchief he had used to wipe his hands and instructed his assistant to escort the terrified Oriana back to the car. Then he walked straight toward me. His cool gaze flicked briefly to Alex, who stood by my side. Clearly he remembered him. And no wonder. Anyone who'd seen Alex once would remember him. Not just a handsome face, but broad shoulders, a trim waist 6'2", and toned abs barely hidden beneath a crisp white shirt. No surprise. I had personally handpicked him during the interview. Did you send those guys? Edward asked, frowning. I let out a cold laugh and wrapped my arm around Alex's waist. Do I look that bored to you? Edward's eyes darkened instantly, his entire presence becoming dangerously oppressive. He forced himself to stay composed, pride and restraint keeping his tone civil. Just asking. If you didn't, good. I thought maybe. You were so jealous you'd lost your mind. I couldn't even be bothered to respond. I picked up my purse, grabbed Alex's hand, and turned to leave. Had enough to drink. Let's go home. What I didn't expect was that Alex was even more devious than I was. He slid his arm around my waist and bent down beside my ear with a devilish smile, speaking just loud enough for Edward to hear those condoms from last time we ran out. Should I grab another box? I froze, ears instantly flushed red. After we left the bar, Alex went into a convenience store and I waited in the car. But then the door was pulled open, coldly, and Edward slid into the seat beside me. In the silence of the car, he spoke calmly. I know. You hired that little assistant just to get under my skin. Mari. He called my name the same way he used to. I'm sending Oriana back to the States tomorrow. Her semester starts soon. When I return, let's sit down and talk. He reached for my hand and looked at me deeply. Let's go back to the way things were. Please. I thought back to 2 weeks ago in my office when he had spoken with the same tenderness. Come home early tonight. What do you want to eat this time? I'll cook it just for you. That day I really thought we could go back. But I had said it before. If you lie to me again, I will never forgive you. Okay. When you get back, we'll talk. About the divorce, I added silently in my heart. Chapter 7. The day Edward returned happened to be the company's project celebration banquet, an event filled with top industry leaders. Mrs. Wong chided him teasingly. If it weren't for this banquet, you'd probably still be in the U.S. with Oriana. I totally forgot you have parents back here. Edward instinctively glanced at me. I held my wine glass with a faint, ambiguous smile. He looked a little flustered and stepped forward to explain the U.S. branch had a contract that needed signing. It delayed me a few days. Oh, look, isn't this the golden couple of the industry? Some mutual friends gathered around jokingly. Every time you two appear together, we're all green with envy. Who would have thought our Miss Maria used to be a total heartbreaker, never the same man twice around her. But in the end it took Mr. Wong to win her over. I smiled. Not really. We're getting divorced. The group froze like statues, completely stunned. Only Edward stiffened, his eyes darkening like a storm was brewing inside them. He stared at me intensely. Everyone started catching on that something was wrong. Maria, you're joking, right? I spoke lightly. All the paperwork's ready. Edward, let's sign it after this. Edward said nothing. He suddenly grabbed my hand, trying to pull me away. Come talk to me. Just then my best friend Misty appeared. Maria, you left your pregnancy report in my car. Edward froze, his gaze trembling. You're pregnant? I saw the flicker of joy bloom in his eyes, and I felt a flash of satisfaction like sweet revenge. Yes, I'm pregnant. I smiled calmly. Just 2 weeks. Edward stood, stunned, disbelief in his expression. What did you say? 2 weeks, I repeated with a tilt of my lips. The joy in Edward's eyes instantly shattered, and in its place came a cold, suffocating silence. He stared at me with bloodshot eyes, veins bulging from his clenched fist. I sneered and yanked my hand free. Edward, since Oriana came back, have we even slept together? The whole room gasped in shock. Maria, are you saying you cheated during your marriage? I let out a laugh full of mockery. And what makes you think I'm the only one who did? Edward's eyes turned red, and he said firmly, every word crystal clear, Maria, I've never betrayed you. Oh, really? I sneered and clicked the remote in my pocket. The soft background music abruptly stopped. On the massive banquet screen, the plain background suddenly changed to a scandalous selfie of Oriana wearing revealing lingerie, straddling Edward and kissing him passionately. The room, which had just been filled with friendly chatter and laughter, went dead silent as every eye locked on the screen. Edward I said, my voice ice cold, screwing your adopted sister behind my back. Isn't that exciting? Chapter 8. Mrs. Wong went pale and fainted on the spot. Security quickly moved in to restore order. Edward's staff began evacuating the guests in a rush. Only the two of us stood there, locked in a silent standoff amid the chaos. Edward's eyes were bloodshot, but his gaze darted away from mine. Mr. Wong roared, what nonsense are you spouting? Oh, I sneered. So you're saying I fabricated those photos to slander your precious Edward and Oriana? Edward stepped closer, trying to grab my hand. Maria, it's a misunderstanding. Misty stepped in between us before he could touch me. Edward, what misunderstanding could possibly explain this? Want to take a look at the chat records between your sister and Maria? Take a good look at Oriana's smug little messages when she sent those photos. Her tone alone should tell you what kind of person she really is. I'm seriously amazed. What kind of homewrecker sleeps with her adoptive brother and still acts so damn righteous about it? This is what passes for family values in your household. Misty's words were cutting, bitter and sharp, but Edward only stood there, face pale as death, looking at me with eyes full of silent pain. Can you Give me a chance to explain. I looked at him without a shred of emotion. There's no need. Let Oriana explain to you how I got those pictures. I turned to leave. Edward rushed forward trying to stop me. Edward I said coldly, I'm pregnant. I shoved him away, stepping back, protectively covering my lower belly. Edward's eyes turned red. His face went even paler. I stared at him with icy calm. Do me a favor. Stay the hell away from me. Back in the car, Misty slammed her hands on the steering wheel. But the divorce agreement, he still didn't sign it, no way. You have to end this disgusting marriage today. I stared straight ahead, voice cool and steady. He'll sign it. I created this whole mess tonight for one reason, to make him sign that agreement without hesitation. Can I ask one question? Misty hesitated. The baby, who's the father? A flash of memory jolted through me. That night, hazy and breathless, burning eyes, tangled limbs, a man's low voice pressed into my ear. It doesn't matter. I looked out the window. Calm. Distant. Chapter 9. I blocked Edward and every single member of the Wong family. His assistants and secretaries took turns calling me. I didn't answer until a man claiming to be Edward's lawyer texted asking to meet and discuss the divorce details in person. I showed up on time, only to find Edward waiting there. We hadn't seen each other for days, and he looked like he'd been through hell. His eyes were bloodshot, a shadow of stubble darkened his jaw. So now the only way I can see you is by talking about divorce, he said hoarsely. I leaned calmly back on the sofa. There's nothing else left for us to discuss except divorce. Edward took a deep breath, trying to keep his voice steady. That night, she was heartbroken drunk. She mistook me for her boyfriend. And I was also drunk and confused. I thought she was you. The more he tried to explain, the weaker his voice became. But believe me, it was just that one time. I swear I've only ever seen her as a sister. Maria, the only one I've ever loved is you. Always you. Watching him scramble to explain made me laugh until tears came to my eyes. It doesn't matter. I slept with someone else too. We're even. I looked at him as his gaze began to crumble piece by piece, his eyes reddening with tears. He choked. I can. Pretend it never happened. I can't. And clearly it did happen. The child inside me is proof. Maria, his voice cracked in pain. Do you really have to do this to me? I cut him off coldly. I gave you chances. The first time, you left me to go tuck Oriana in. I told you then, it's either her or me. You didn't take me seriously. The second time, you said you'd make her leave, but instead you left with her. The third time, you said I was cruel, harsh, and told me to be understanding. Well, sorry, I can't understand her. And I won't. So that's it, Edward. Go live happily ever after with your sister. I told you I only see her. I snapped, picking up a glass of ice water and throwing it in his face. Enough, Edward, you keep saying she's just your sister, and yet you slept with her, then had the nerve to use me as your excuse, saying you thought she was me. Can you not make me sick? She means more to you than you'll admit. Otherwise you wouldn't have trampled all over me again and again for her. Edward stood there in disgrace, almost pathetic. He opened his mouth to speak again, but I gave him a cold, mocking glare. You want to deny, can you? I made it crystal clear. Oriana crossed the line. And you let her. You kept indulging her. You believed she was some fragile little girl who needed your protection. And I was the cruel, vicious, twisted villain in your story. Maybe you did only see her as a sister. But she never saw you as a brother. She was heartbroken. She was drunk. Oh, what a convenient excuse. Edward, stop lying to yourself. The moment you realized you two had slept together, you should have known what she really felt about you. And worse, you should have asked yourself what you really felt about her. I tapped on my phone and played an audio recording. Oriana's smug, self-satisfied voice filled the room. Edward trembled. His body swayed as if he could barely remain standing. Chapter 10. Maria, don't think being married to my brother for a few years makes you so special. I grew up with him. His heart has always belonged to me, and mine to him. We're each other's one and only. You were just some third party who barged in halfway. If I hadn't gotten sick and he hadn't sent me abroad for treatment, you never would have gotten close to him. I would never have let you seduce him. Maria, it must be lonely sleeping in an empty bed alone. Just so you know, he was all over me last night. Couldn't get enough. Edward stood frozen in disbelief. His eyes were filled with fury, despair, and panic. He turned to me in a frenzy. That's not true. I didn't. Maria, believe me. It was just that one time when I wasn't thinking clearly once. 100 times. What difference does it make? I watched him quietly as his emotions crumbled one by one. Oriana said I was the third party. My nose stung. I almost broke down. She's right. The way you both made me feel, I really did seem like the extra. Edward's eyes turned even redder. He knelt down beside me in panic, his voice almost pleading. No, Maria, please just listen to me. The tears finally fell. I said softly, Edward, the first, don't want to hear it anymore. Edward choked, staring at me stubbornly. I won't divorce you. I don't want a divorce. He still hadn't realized. I had already closed that door and locked it behind me. When you're ready to divorce, contact my brother. He's my lawyer. I walked away without hesitation. Edward reached out to stop me, but caught nothing but air. In the days that followed, Edward appeared outside my office building like clockwork. Morning, noon, and night, 3 times a day. Each time he just sat quietly in the first-floor lobby. He ate there, handled business there, even took meetings there. The scandal from the banquet had spread like wildfire throughout our circles. People were already whispering about the Wong family. Now, with him blatantly squatting at my company, the gossip only got worse, and all of it eventually reached his parents' ears. Mr. Wong contacted me himself. He said he would make Edward divorce me, but he had one condition. Chapter 11, he asked me to publicly clarify that the baby is Edward's. That day what I said was out of spite, just words hurled in anger. Bottom line, for the Wong family, saving face matters far more than the actual truth. I found it laughable, but I still agreed. First, if I filed for divorce through court, the process would be long and drawn out. And now that I'm pregnant, I don't want to waste time or energy. Second, there were too many business interests entangled between our families. Going nuclear would bring nothing but a moment of satisfaction and a long string of consequences. Under family pressure, Edward finally signed the divorce papers. When Mr. Wong brought him to meet me that day, he looked like a walking corpse. We've signed. Now please keep your word. I carefully reviewed the signed documents, then gave a faint smile. Of course. I'll make it public tonight. I don't know if that smile of mine, genuine or not, stabbed Edward right through the heart. He turned away without saying a word. How are you planning to make it public? Mr. Wong asked. I'll post something on WeChat. Mr. Wong wasn't satisfied. I've already made arrangements. This weekend the Wong family will host a formal dinner. We'll announce your and Edward's amicable divorce, and you'll clear things up in person. Sure, just another performance. If Edward himself wasn't uncomfortable with it, why should I be? As I headed to the parking garage to drive home, I found Edward leaning against my car door. A half-burned cigarette dangled between his fingers. Through the haze of smoke, he looked up at me. Maria, since we're getting divorced, can we go home? Our home. Just one last time. You still left a few things behind. I thought back. It was true. I'd left some old books and notebooks in the storage room. Before I could reply, Edward opened the door and got into the passenger seat. He sat there the whole ride, eyes closed, silent. But I noticed a single tear silently fall from the corner of his eye. So what I'd cried more than enough myself. When I opened the door to the apartment, the familiar scent of the air freshener we used to love greeted me. But the interior was completely changed. New furniture. New layout. It looked like a whole different home. Edward's voice trembled through his tears. I know. I'm the one who brought Oriana into our life. I ruined our home. That's why I wanted to make a new one for you. Everything she touched, I threw it all away. I'll never see her again. Not for the rest of my life. His eyes, red and swollen, lit up with a desperate hope. I even prepared a nursery. I didn't know if it's a boy or a girl, so I bought everything in 2 sets. Will you go look? It's really cute. You'll love it. I was briefly stunned. Edward, are you like your father now, lying to yourself? So well, you've actually started to believe that this child really isn't yours. Edward gave a soft smile. I don't care. If it's yours, I love it. That's enough for me. He really had lost his mind. I finally let out a sigh. You don't have to do this. Maria, he murmured, voice raw with pain. These past days have been worse than death. Chapter 12. Misty asked me if I was softening toward him. I gave a faint smile and shook my head. I've just stopped blaming him, that's all. After the Wong family's banquet, there would be no further entanglements. Let's go our separate ways and be well. When Edward and I appeared at the banquet together, it shocked everyone. His parents calmly stood up and announced our peaceful divorce. We also want to take this opportunity to clarify those photos shown at the celebration banquet were just a prank by our adopted daughter who lacked proper judgment. Edward is completely innocent. This, at the end of the day, is our failure as parents. We took her in out of kindness, but in return she betrayed that kindness and caused a rift between our son and daughter-in-law. As of now, the Wong family has officially ended the adoption. She is no longer our daughter. At that point, Mr. Wong glanced toward me. I followed his cue and spoke. Everyone, I was indeed impulsive that night. I said some things out of anger. Even though I'm now pregnant, Edward and I have decided to divorce peacefully. We'll co-parent the child moving forward. With that, the message was clear. Anyone who kept gossiping after this would be seen as stirring up drama. It was a graceful, well-packaged ending. As I was about to leave the Wong family's villa by car, Edward knocked on my window. He must have known I was leaving. He ran out to catch me breathless. What you said about co-parenting the baby in the future, was that really true? No. It wasn't. The faint hope that had gathered in his eyes shattered instantly. The car pulled away into the night. All of my memories with Edward were like the darkness outside the window, drifting quietly past. I had never felt so at peace. Just as I got home, the property manager from my villa community called. A neighbor had reported a suspicious smell coming from my villa. They were concerned there might be a safety hazard and asked for permission to enter and inspect. I had no choice but to drive back. Come to think of it, I hadn't been there in a long time. Not since that night. Chapter 13. By the time I arrived and dealt with the property manager and everything else, it was already past midnight. Exhausted, I collapsed onto the sofa. My stomach growled. I suddenly remembered that night. After everything, the man still had energy to spare and went to the kitchen to cook me a bowl of noodles. Broad shoulders, narrow waist, shirtless upper body with only an apron tied at the waist. Truly a sight to behold. The noodles were simple, nothing fancy, but the aroma, flavor, and presentation were perfect. He rested his cheek on his palm, watching me eat with quiet focus. You're not picky at all, easy to feed. In that moment, I sensed he hadn't treated the night as a meaningless one-night stand. So the next morning, right after I left the villa, I deleted his contact information. I informed HR to issue him a severance check and fired him. I did feel a tiny pang of guilt. After all, I had made the first move and in the end, coldly discarded him. But later HR told me he left with style, unbothered, as if he'd seen it coming. Suddenly the doorbell rang. I thought it was the property manager again. But there he was, leaning lazily against the doorframe, arms crossed, radiating a casual arrogance. I opened the door and froze. After a month apart, something about him had changed. Same amazing physique, same handsome face, but gone was the pretend obedience and tame demeanor in his eyes. Maria, he drawled, I heard you plan to let another man raise my child. Just then Misty sent me a WeChat message. Maria, isn't that the assistant you just hired a while ago? I looked up stunned. You're the youngest son of the Jean family from City A. The year I graduated college was the most rebellious year of my life. My mom had finally had enough of my dad and his parade of mistresses. She left the country to study abroad, chasing her own purpose. And mine to marry Edward, a man I'd only met a few times, for the sake of my family's interests. To protest, I buried myself in clubs, surrounded by hot guys switching partners like changing shoes. That day was the first formal meeting between me and Edward, arranged by the elders. To sabotage the whole thing, I told Misty to find me a hot guy. I'm here. Where's your guy? He's waiting for you at the door upstairs, Miss Maria. Tall, white shirt, super handsome, can't miss him. There was a man standing by the door, phone in one hand, cigarette between his fingers. I didn't look too closely. He was hot. That was enough. I grabbed him and said, let's go. I'm on a tight schedule. All I could think about was ruining this engagement. I didn't even notice the flicker of surprise in his eyes. But just as we were about to reach the private room, he vanished. I was furious. Cursed Misty out for being unreliable. She was confused. He waited forever. Where did you go? Only then did I realize. I grabbed the wrong guy. It became one of those facepalm at 2 a.m. memories of my life. If Alex hadn't told me himself, I would have never known that the man I accidentally dragged away that night was him. He'd asked around, figured out I was engaged to Edward, and scoffed, not even sure that marriage will happen. But when he heard I actually married Edward, He got so pissed, he went abroad the very next day. Later, applying as my assistant was just a whim. Getting close to me was a long-planned move. And making a baby with me, that was the harvest of his patient scheming. Now during my entire pregnancy, Alex Jean was glued to my side every single day. Maria, we agreed, our baby is ours to raise.